Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this 11th edition of InnoGrid, the ENTSO-E and ETSO conference dedicated to innovation in power system. So we will have this session today co-moderated and presented by different projects. I will be here today with you, Norela Constantinescu, Head of Section Innovation in ENTSO-E, together with Roberto Zangrandi. Roberto, if you can introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm Roberto Zangrandi. I'm Secretary General with EDSO. And so, should I give my salutation? Yes. So thank you very much, Norela, and thank you very much, all of you, for attending. And we are some 100 around this conference now, but I think the number will increase. This is edition 11 of InnoGrid. Edition 11 of InnoGrid confirms a solid cooperation between EDSO and ENTSO-E on all the topics that concern transmission system operators and distribution system operators. EDSO is strategically focused on the industry of distributing electric power in medium and low voltage to all of our consumer. And it is essential to see exactly from an industrial point of view the cooperation with the TSOs. And nothing is better than having joint projects and projects that will be displayed today here that can confirm what is the industrial approach of this cooperation. Norela, thanking you again for the good cooperation between ENTSO-E and EDSO, thanking all of your staff and all of my staff in this endeavor. I give you back the floor.
Thank you, Roberto. So also from my side, many thanks for this cooperation, which was established 11 years ago. So today is the first session of InnoGrid in 2022. We will have another session which is more policy dedicated on 29 of June, a hybrid event, so with also real participation. Today we are going actually online for 2 hours and 45 minutes, so stay with us. And we will listen to 13 projects which are going to be talking around 3 major areas: value of the grids, value for customers, and the value of flexibility. These subjects are supposed to answer all the political requests we have in place, starting from EU Green Deal, continuing last year with Fit for 55, and now in the new conditions, Repower EU. This session is going to be recorded, and I will go now to more logistic part of the session. So the video and microphone will be allowed only for speakers and panelists. You can ask your questions by using Slido. So you have the code there, hashtag IGrid2020. It's going also to be posted in the chat. So we will also have the possibility to rank the most voted questions, and this will be addressed to the panelists. With this, I would like to thank you. And in addition to the projects, we will start now with an introduction regarding research and innovation plans for the grids, TSOs, DSOs, also other grids, which is going to be provided by Nikos Hatziagariou, the team lead in ETIPSNet for developing these plans. It's an emeritus professor with National Technical University of Athens. So Nikos, the floor is yours, and you will have 10 minutes sharp.
Thank you very much, Norela. Thank you very much for the invitation to InnoGrid, which is this important conference organized by ENSOI and ETSO. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the ETIP-SNET implementation plan 2022-2025. So this is the high-level use cases of this implementation plan. And if we look at the next slide, just let me give you some small introduction to ETIP-SNET. So the ETIP-SNET, the European Technology Innovation Platform for Smart Networks for Energy Transition, aims to guide and identify the research and innovation priorities to support Europe's energy transition, addressing the innovation challenges for the energy system. And this goes beyond smart networks also to smart energy networks, not only smart electricity grids. And this platform brings together the main stakeholders' views of the stakeholder associations and organizes 350 experts from the energy sector from all over Europe. And the aim is to prepare and update visions, roadmaps, and implementation plans, and provides a consolidated stakeholder view. So you see that all major associations of energy in Europe participate in this platform. So in the next slide, you can see that ETIP-SNET has provided in 2018 its Vision 2050 that sees a system that is supplied by renewables and both concentrated and distributed variable renewables. It needs a flexibility portfolio of the various resources at the distributed sources also. And this is provided also by storage solutions. It's centered in integrated energy networks, sector coupling, and of course digitalization to make this complicated system operate. So the future integrated energy system. In the next slide, you see that it is summarized in this slide, where you have the energy generation provided by renewable electricity, also renewable electricity and heat, renewable heating and cooling, renewable gas, renewable fuel, and also some nuclear. And you see the energy consumption that has now these double-sided arrows. That means that the consumers that are becoming also consumers, operating the local energy markets and providing electricity to the system. And in the middle of this complicated input-output system is the networks, the energy networks, with electricity networks in the backbone of this system, and all the conversion and storage devices that interact and provide the flexibility to the operation of the system. So in the next slide, you can see that now, in order to reach this vision, we are working on providing roadmaps and implementation plans. Roadmaps are provide the 10-year ahead path towards the future. Currently, we are updating the 2020-2030 roadmap. So at the end of 2022, we provide the 2022-2032 roadmap. And this also has a number of intermediate steps that we call implementation plans with a 3-year horizon. And currently, we have completely the IEP of 2022-2025. And the main, in the next slide, the main directions of this IEP is to, the main characteristics is to reuse the basic ideas defined in the previous roadmap, and then provide, that was organized in topics and research tasks, and now have used the terminology of high-level use cases, which really, and the associated priority project concepts that provide ideas about research goals as project concepts. And this is makes a more clearer and comprehensible view of the way we see research and innovation developing in the next 3 years. And the basic elements you've taken into account in the next slide, you will see that it is, of course, the European policies on Fit for 55 and also the current REPowerEU. And also we have studied various roadmaps and other international ideas about research and innovation, and have ended up with these 10 high-level use cases that I can describe very briefly. Is the optimal cross-sector integration and grid-scale storage, high-level case 1. And the second high-level use case is about market-driven TSO-DSO system user interaction, which is very important, of course, to have now the TSOs, DSOs collaborating for the flexibility exploitation. High-level use case 3 is markets, the pan-European wholesale market, but also regional and local markets. The fourth family of projects is the massive penetration of renewables into the transmission distribution grid. How can we adapt and prepare the system to operate with such high penetration? High-level use case 5, the one-stop shop, and the digital technologies for market participation of consumers at the center, a very important high-level use case for the participation of the consumer. Then the secure operation of the system with widespread use of power electronics at all system levels. How can you enhance system supervision and control, including cybersecurity, the transportation integration and storage, and the flexibility provisioned by buildings, districts, and industrial processes. As you see, all these high-level use cases are closely linked to the operators, both at transmission and distribution level. I have chosen 4 of these to develop a bit further, just to give you some more flavor of what we think inside of these high-level use cases. And these are, of course, as I told you, subdivided into the project concepts that create more families of specific projects. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to develop a bit more the market-driven TSO-DSO system user interactions, the massive penetration of renewables, the consumer, and the flexibility provisioned by buildings. So let me start very briefly by the TSO-DSO system interaction in the next slide. So it is important to look at the cooperation at the exchange of coordinated balancing congestion handling services coming from DR and power plants and control loads. Need to involve the consumer, individual, community, or organization in the energy system to have an appropriate design to achieve a valuable outcome for the prosumer. The cooperation interaction should be market-driven and applicable in the heterogeneous geographical and economic conditions, and the planning and operation coordination and flexibility mechanism shall be primarily market-based. The next high-level use case, is about the mass penetration of renewables into the transmission distribution grid. So we know, of course, the ambitious targets that have been set by the European energy system, both by the EU Green Deal package, Fit for 55, and now REPowerEU. This includes both large centralized at transmission level, but also distributed at distribution level, which have a number of technical problems, like less inertia, increased imbalances, new requirements for improved forecasts, sophisticated analysis, important systems for situational awareness, global monitoring, market dynamics, and new market designs, and the issue of resilience that is very important. And we must see how we can also integrate storage and flexible solutions to enhance the resilience of the whole system. Another high-level use case that is now centered on the consumer, in the next slide, is what we call the next slide, is the one-stop shop and digital technologies. Here it is important to look at the role of the prosumers and the design of cross-sectoral energy system infrastructures, acceleration of electrification, particularly heat pumps and vehicle charging and home charging, and also how they could be integrated with the digital economy. And the next final high-level use case that I will develop a bit more detail now is about the flexibility in the next slide provided by buildings districts and industrial processes. So here we will focus on renewable heating and cooling at national, regional, and local level. Look at self-consumption, at planning, also looking at neighborhood buildings, neighborhoods, and also smart cities, and enable effective participation in the market by smarter control mechanisms and technologies. So this gives you a flavor of what we are, what we have developed in these high-level use cases that are further, as I told you, specified in project concepts in more detail, more fine-tuned. And that concludes my presentation. And if you want to download this, I think the next slide is the way you can download the implementation plan and have a more detailed look at it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Nikos, for these insights in our research plan for the next few years, 2022-2025. We hope that actually the projects which are going to be presented today will give us insights on what was covered and what is still needed to be carried out in the next years. Please do not forget to use Slido for asking questions. So for the moment, I didn't see any clarification question for Nikos. Therefore, I would like, so you can have the Slido link in the chat. So Laurent is going to paste that for you. We are going now to pass directly to the first panel session, value of the grid. So the grids are going to be the backbone of the energy system, and the innovations have to be developed and deployed within the next 5 to 8 years by 2030. Today, we are going to hear from these 4 projects, both TSOs, DSOs, but also related a little bit to the customers, so the whole supply chain, on the grid enhancing technologies being hardware or software, regulatory perspectives, services which the grids can provide for the power system, as well as energy management. And I would like to introduce this panel. So my colleague in co-moderation, Andrei Cherny. Andrei, if you can join me as well.
Yes, hello, my name is Andrei Cherny. I'm a senior projects officer at EDSO, and I'm happy to co-moderate this session. I think we have some interesting projects to be displayed, and I think it's also important that they cover concrete developments in different parts of Europe and also at different stages of the energy solution supply chain. So it should be an interesting mix. And I pass the word back to Norella.
Thank you, Andrei. So sharp to our project. So you will have the opportunity to see actually more pitches of these projects than a very long exchange. And we will have panel discussions to which you can contribute by actually putting your questions in Slido. So I will go to our first speaker, Anastasios Tsumpas, representing FARCROSS project, which is looking in grid enhancing technologies, grid increasing capacity with a focus on the cross-border. So Anastasios, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Norella. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Anastasios Tsumpas. I'm head of unit of electrical power and energy systems at UPTech Energy and project manager of the FARCROSS project. Next slide, please. So the FACROS project aims to connect major stakeholders of the energy value chain around Europe and demonstrate integrated hardware and software solutions that will facilitate the unlocking of the resources for the cross-border electricity flows and regional cooperation. FACROS consortium brings together 31 partners from 14 different EU member states and 2 associate countries. The consortium is well balanced in terms of sector representation and skills and focus of the partners, and represents a heavily industry-driven project with 8 TSOs, 2 energy producers, 3 market operators, power system manufacturers, service and technology providers, and research partners. Next slide, please. In this slide, we can see the 5 FACROS demonstrators and the demonstration countries. The so-called MPFC demo, Unlocking Cross-Border Capacity with Modular Power Flow Control Solutions, investigates cross-border transmission lines for the potential application of modular power flow control solutions. The aim is to select the optimal locations of the hardware's deployment and to verify its operational benefits in terms of overall network decongestion, contingency, and cost-effective exploitation of renewable energy. The so-called DLR-H demo, which is complex grid management technology for handling cross-border transmission line capacity-related issues. This demo investigates cross-border transmission lines for potential application of dynamic line rating solutions, and the aim is to select optimal locations for the solutions deployment and verify their operational benefits in terms of increased equipment health monitoring, and thus achieving improved grid capacity, resilience, and security. The WAMS demo, which is an implementation of a wide area protection, automation, and control system, so-called WAMPAC, applied to cross-border transmission systems, investigates the grid stability and security criteria that will act as service requirements for a complete WAMPAC solution. And detailed software architecture is configured, aiming to improve control and monitoring in the Greek high-voltage transmission assets, while strengthening the system's resilience to transient stability. The European demo, which is a pan-European deep modeling framework for improved system operation, planning, and forecasting in the inter-TSO level, outlines the architecture and development of a European forecasting platform that TSOs can utilize for more efficient, secure, and sustainable operation of their assets. Through extensive data acquisition and analysis, this system, European, will upgrade the existing coordination and communication schemes employed, achieving flexible and sustainable performance. The OptimCap demo, which is optimized cross-border capacity auction algorithm, deals with capacity allocation for regional cross-border trading by utilizing available transfer capacities for reserve procurement and for energy trading, building on top of current ATC-based simple transfer capacity auction algorithms, thus assuring the system security and the more effective and valuable allocation of the grid capacity. Next slide, please. Which are the main cross-border challenges in the EU region? Building more capacity. By 2040, at least 93 gigawatts will be the need for additional cross-border transmission capacity in Europe, or other solutions such as storage, hybrid offshore infrastructure, smart grids. Conversion technologies should be integrated in order to facilitate a pan-European efficient electricity market. And of course, another challenge is to increase the capacity allocation, the so-called 70% rules, that capacity might available to market parties per cross-border connection to be higher than 70% of the technical capacity. And Acer states that the development of European rules for the calculation and allocation of cross-zonal capacities on electricity interconnectors is an integral step in order to increase market efficiency. The FACROS concept, through its methodology and demonstration activities with all the technologies that I described before, directly addresses these challenges. The FACROS state-of-the-art hardware and software solutions are essential to provide more observability to the grids and extra capacity to the cross-border electricity flows in the region, especially in these challenging times. Such development are key to improve security of supply in the Central Eastern and Southern Eastern European region very fast, without adding more lines, as those take more time. Next slide, please. And I think this was my last one. So thank you very much for your attention. I will be happy to answer your questions afterwards.
Thank you very much, Anastasis. I still don't see any questions in Slido. I hope that myself I'm in a good Slido screen. So I would like my colleagues to react at least to the welcome message which I posted there. So now we go directly to the second project of this value of the grids session, and I will give the floor to Nathalie Glisset, so project coordinator Osmose, and also with the RT, the French transmission system operator. So Nathalie, to you now.
Thank you, Norella. So good morning, everyone. So I think you can already go to the next slide. Thank you. So I'm going to talk to you about the Osmose project. So this project started in 2018, basically, and it ended this year in April. It's a pretty big project with 33 partners from 9 countries. It was funded by European Commission under H2020 program. And the objectives were first to quantify future needs and sources of flexibility in the European power system, and then through 4 large-scale demonstrators led by transmission system operators to foster the flexibility of storage, renewable energy sources, industrial loads, and grid. There's many topics covered in the project. I'm not going to explain all of them to you today, but you can search for more information in our website if you want. Next slide, please. So to be in line with the topic of this session, which is the grid, value of the grid, I'm going to focus on our work about interconnections that we basically identified as a real key flexibility lever for the European power system. So first, we conducted some simulation at the 2030 and 2050 horizon of the European power system. And we really highlighted how interconnections were really a key provider of flexibility at all time scales. So for example, you can see on the graph on the left of the slide, the situation of France in 2030. And it's basically an indicator that we have developed to highlight the provision of flexibility from various technologies. And what we can see on this graph is that in this situation, interconnectors are basically the second provider of flexibility. We also studied the contribution of different technologies to more short-term flexibility. And especially, we saw that with more renewable generation, we'll have more short-term uncertainty due basically to the errors that will be made in the forecast of renewable generation. And thus, we will need some technologies able to adapt their program more and more in the intraday and basically more closer to real time. And thus, we saw also in our simulations that interconnections were really a key flexibility lever for that short-term flexibility. On the demonstration side, what we wanted to see is how we can exchange energy cross-border near to real time. And to do that, so on the producer side, we had 3 hydro producers involved in the demo from Italy and Slovenia, so HDE, HAC, and Enel. And from their point of view, the advantage of having more close to real-time process that they can assess more precisely their remaining flexibility when they are close to real time. They can have more information on their portfolio, on the hydro inflows, basically. And thus, in our demonstrator, they were able to send some, let's say, some flexibility beads up to 15 minutes before delivery time, and thus really offering all their capacity. On the network side, so we had especially Terna, the Italian TSO involved, and LS, the Slovenian TSO involved. And here also in the current process, most of the time the capacity at the borders are estimated 2 days ahead of real time, thus with a lot of uncertainty. And when we are coming more close to real time and we can use more precise data on the network, we are able to calculate more precisely what are the capacity remaining on the lines. And thus here the idea was that the transmission system operators were providing really close to real-time network snapshots which were merged together and where we identify the critical branches and critical outages on the network close to real time. So this process was run every 10 to 15 minutes continuously. And then this network data and this flexibility beads were sent to an optimization platform, which was able to select the feasible beads while taking into account the grid constraints. And these optimizations was run every 5 minutes, and it resulted in sending activation to the producers every 5 seconds through the IFR signal. So next slide, please. So what were the challenges of such a concept? So as you can imagine, the whole process needed to be very fast and quick because we are close to real time. So we cannot afford to have very long calculations. But still, the big challenge is to be secure for the grid, because at this time horizon, there is no operator who will be able to take any action afterwards of this activation. Thus, we need to make sure really that the beads will be activated, do not create any grid constraints, and that's a really challenge. Thus, we implemented a joint optimization, and it was successful and resulted in a real cross-border activation in the 3rd of March this year. Now, what would be the challenge for scaling up? So there would be some room to study the market design around such a concept, since we focused more on the technical feasibility. Also, we should study the liquidity, since in our demo it was very limited, but we would need to study how far this liquidity could increase with more renewable. And also, if we go for a larger grid area, we need to make sure the calculations times remain compatible with the closer to real-time process. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathalie, for this insight actually on the value of the grid. So the interconnections and also the grids themselves, they can provide flexibility. So I hope that this is going to be retrieved in the last panel of the discussion. Thank you also, Anastasis, for looking into the grid enhancing technologies and their actually use for also cross-border dimension and increased liquidity in the market. And now passing the floor to you, Andre, for the next two projects. We will retrieve afterwards for the panel discussion.
Thank you, Nora. So first, I would like to introduce the Flames project, which brings some interesting innovations in grid modeling, future scenario development methodology, and other interesting things. And I would like to pass the floor to Matteo to talk us through.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you everyone for being here. I think we can move on to the next slide, please. I'm going to be, next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to be introducing you to the PLAMES project that stands for Planning of Multi-Energy System, a comprehensive modeling framework that was developed, next slide, by a small consortium made of the Technische Universität of Aachen, the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, opted together with the University of Bologna and Pisa, and the distribution system operator from Turkey, OEDAŞ. I'm actually speaking from OEDAŞ as I'm in a project meeting, and we are being supported by a very valuable advisory board that includes TSOs, industry players, associations, and the Florence School of Regulation. So we think we put together the scientific skills and market expertise to develop a decision support tool to design the optimal decarbonized energy system of the future, trying to balance investments between the supply on the one side and transmission and distribution networks. When I say optimal, to us, it means cost effective, given the target decarbonization level that we are aiming for. And the way we do this is by also not looking only at the electricity system, which of course is, as it was mentioned before, the backbone of the energy system of the future, but how it interacts with heat, gas, electric vehicle loads, and potential storage opportunities, and hydrogen, as a means to enhance flexibility and synergies. We are testing our models I'm not going to go into the details of those, of course, but just to give you a flavor, on 2 levels. One is a central large-scale national transmission system focused case, and we are analyzing the German 2040 to 2050 scenario in this respect. And at a more local, regional distribution system case, we study the Bilecik region in Turkey with the company that we do. The big challenge of the project is trying to combine and find a good compromise between big data optimization modeling versus usability. Next slide. Because as you may understand, deep diving into the interconnectedness of different systems requires modulating and describing the system with a higher granularity throughout all the conditions that the system can actually encounter, which means that the systems need to include the 8,760 hours of a year with this large geographic scale of a nation, because I mean, the case that we're looking at needs to take into account the imbalances between large renewable generation in the north of Germany, for instance, with the actual loads that happen in the south of the country. And of course, brute force approaches to the technology and transmission infrastructure would just yield to unbearable costs. And it is by leveraging on the flexibility provided by the multi-energy approach that the system tries to achieve long-term scenarios where the loads are covered, leveraging on a balanced approach that manages all the interconnectedness and the integration of these systems. So flexibility and flexibility by design is really the key asset of this project, and the usability means having a good and easy to use, easy to read interfaces that can be used to analyze scenarios, confront scenarios, and be able to really deep dive in the results of the instance and the solutions that are being given by the models themselves. Next slide, please. We are now in the last few months of the project. We are due to finish in October this year, which means that we are very much concentrating on the exploitation strategy and really getting deeper into that. We think we've got 2 value propositions that are ready for being launched in the market. One for the central transmission level case, which targets TSOs, governmental agencies and national institutions, as well as in financial institutions like the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development or the Inter-American Development Bank. And in this case, the tool can be seen as a means to design national decarbonization transition paths, support regulation and policy making, understand how different technologies will actually play their role in the future energy scenarios, as well as supporting long-range investments. At a more regional distribution level, the target, of course, are more DSOs and local government agencies, and maybe investors, to really assess how the local distribution network can react with the challenges of future electrification, as well as increase the centralized renewable energy sources. The approach that we will adopt will of course be based on quite some support from the project partners for setting up the configuration and analyzing the scenario, but we also include and are ready to provide the capacity to have the tool itself available for the end user, so that it can run some simulation autonomously and navigate solutions, so that these become ongoing assets for the planning of the future energy systems. We are already looking and discussing with some interested early adopters, but of course we will be very glad to enlarge this search. Please do follow us, and I'll be responding to your questions in the panel.
Thank you, Matteo. I think indeed proper consideration of flexibility resources in network planning is indeed paramount to manage the future investment needs in networks. And flexibility also leads me to the next presentation of the iElectrics project, which focused on development of flexibility resources in medium and low voltage networks, and especially looking at the potential of local energy communities. And I invite Noemi to continue with the presentation.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Noemi. I'm head of grid operation and planning team in CIRCE. Okay. iElectrics has received funding from the European Union's Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Programme. iElectrics is a response to the Horizon 2020 call for proposal integrated local energy system, Energy Island. This call addresses the challenge of a single and smart European electricity grid in integrating renewable energy sources. This call promotes the enabling role of distribution system operators to connect local energy communities to the network. 60 partners in 9 countries: Austria, Belgium, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, India, Spain. There are five DCOs from Europe involved: E.ON, Enedis, FIP, and one from India, Power. CIRCE is leading the work package focused on the impact and deployment analysis of the most promising solution, and also collaborating in the work package focused on scalability, replicability, and regulatory recommendation. Therefore, the objective of the project are the following: increase renewable energy sources integration into the network, connected citizen energy communities to medium voltage and low voltage network, increase local use of local renewable energy sources, reduction of local energy tariff, increase grid resiliency and thereby security of supply, postpone network investment, improve consumption involves the prosumer. In order to that, the project aims to develop innovative and sustainable technical solution and business model related with the following technology: mobility, mobile energy system storage, demand response schemes implemented by the DCO, grid digitalization at the level of medium voltage distribution grid. The project has defined several different use cases that are going to be tested in different demos. ELGA is mobile solution storage and demand response to avoid peak loads and voltage deviation in tourist area during holiday season. 2 different demos in 2 different areas of the grid, both with similar challenges. MOEF, mobile storage and flexibility to postpone grid reinforcement in a rural area with high penetration of renewable. STROM, increase energy efficiency, saving, and local consumption by means of an energy system storage and dynamic rating scheme in a rural area with local energy communities. And SACTI, improve resiliency of the grid island mode using energy storage system and digitalization of the network low voltage in an urban area with increased share of PV. And the next slide, please. Okay. CIRCE in the iElectrics project has developed an IPT tool that has been included in My Smart Grid platform. This platform tries to help distribution in their day-to-day work. The IPT tool is able to perform modeling, simulation, and calculation of the hosting capacity of the blow-up network. To the same, CIRCE design and perform a set of simulations which can model the local energy system and its resources in a steady state and dynamic environment. The positive contribution of the battery system in network planning will be included in the calculation. This tool can quantify the amount of RES which are still able to integrate in medium voltage and low voltage network with and without battery. In order to prepare the development of IPT tool, CIRCE simulates the hosting capacity in different locations. The tool automatizes the calculation for any different site presenting the most effective location in terms of integration capacity. The first screen shows the grid modeling planning. The digital planning twin represents the real model of the distribution grid, where the distribution plan is included. The aforementioned planning will be according to the current planning of the transport grid approved by the General Administration of the state, or the investment plans of the distribution company approved by General Administration of the state. This model must contain all the elements that make up the real grid, such as transformer, line, generation. In order to introduce the grid model, it can be done in different formats, such as a theme, PCC, net plan, implemental system. In the next screen, you define the values of the point to locate the battery. For example, you select the possible terminals where the battery will be installed, the minimum and the maximum and low voltage, the power of the battery, among the other parameters. Finally, you can see one of the results of the tools. In this case, it shows the hosting capacity with and without battery. As mentioned above, this tool has been included in my Smart Grid platform that CIRCE has in service. It also contains the algorithms for calculation, access, and connection capacity in accordance with Spanish regulation, and the DCO toolset that make possible to monitor the grid in real time and intraday. And in the event of grid problems, for example, congestion or voltage deviation, the tools propose different solutions. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. The main challenge we have faced in the electric projects, in many cases, demand is not similar in order, is not on a similar order of magnitude of as generation. Therefore, improve associated with demand response or storage technical mature solutions are not relevant. The regulatory framework of most member state does not contemplate use of storage and on-demand response by the DCO for flexibility. This has to be done by an additional figure. This is a disincentive for DCOs to engage in this business model. In some countries, it's investment that if there is no one else offering to provide this service, the DCO can provide it. Its location has its own particular, which makes it difficult to draw general conclusions, and the demand response program has proved more difficult to implement than expected, both technical and in terms of involving participants. Okay, thank you for your attention. Any questions?
Thank you, Norella. In fact, we will now have a short panel session, so we can address the questions there. And I invite also Noemi, you to stay here, and also the other presenters and Norella to join me. And maybe Norella, you can kick off the discussion with the first question.
Thank you, Andrei. So I think we will give priority to the questions which were asked in Slido. Are mainly related to the flexibility and the value of the flexibility. So the questions were addressed to you, Matteo. First of all, how you relate actually the flexibility resources in addition to energy mix optimization to the value proposition for flexibility. And then if you include also financial markets, if you can shortly address that one.
Yeah, I mean, these are big questions. The way we address the flexibility issue with a multi-energy approach in the Plamis project is very much by having a good idea of the demand and actually drive supply and transmission / distribution infrastructure development, taking into account the capacity with power to X to actually decongestion the grid or maybe leverage on the opportunity for interaction with district heating or heat storage or battery storage or whatever technology can be included. So it's what we are looking at is an engineering-based approach that honestly looks partly at the financial and market dynamics, but not entirely, to be honest. as the problem is already very big, and we focus more on the way different systems interact at local and global level to minimize the cost on the infrastructure, especially on the transmission and distribution infrastructure. That's the way the PLAMIS project addressed the issue. I'm not sure it entirely answered the question, but I know these are huge things.
Thank you, Matteo. I think the most rated question is for you, Noemi. At least it's on the top. For the project iElectrics, you opted to introduce the local flexibility by using the network tariff and not by actually using the local flexibility market. It's a question. So which of the options you used? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not an expert, but I think it was defined in the
project.
project.
Can we see you, Noemi? Please.
Yes, you can see me? You can. Yes, hello?
I cannot see you,
sorry.
but go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I know switched on my camera, sorry. Okay, in this project, it was defined to use the network tariff because it's a requirements of the project. It's defined by the project. It's not an option to introduce the local flexibility market because when the project is defined, we decided to use the network tariffs.
Thank you, Noemi. I'm going to pass now a little bit to Osmos project. So for you, Natalie, of course, I will have this question maybe also at the end, but Sebastian Lepi, it's asking what are the next steps beyond this project? So you underline, of course, the use of interconnectors.
Yeah, so for the two topics that I presented, so I presented some work on the, let's say, more simulations of the future power system. So somehow this is an endless work because you always have something more to integrate and so on. So we'll continue working on simulating the future of the European power system with future project and internally by the partners of the project, basically. Regarding the demo that I presented, there is no, let's say, a real follow-up of this demo in particular, but basically within the demo, we developed different pieces of software that would be used by the different partners. So for example, we have hydro producers which have developed tools to, let's say, to optimize their portfolio close to real time, and they expect to use it in real business life, let's say, after the project. So that's a great achievement for them. And on more the algorithm that we have developed, let's say, to really optimize both the flexibility of producers and taking into account grid constraints. So internally, for example, at RT, we are using the same kind of software to really optimize the operation of the grid close to real time. So it's useful in that way. And then really, if we would like to, let's say, generalize this new concept of cross-border exchanges close to real time, this will deserve a lot of work, I would say, because as we can see, when we are implementing such different changes in the operation of the system, it takes a lot of time. Thus, it will require, a big involvement of maybe some key TSOs to work on the topic and push it beyond just a demonstrator. But so far, there is nothing planned already on that point.
Thank you, Natalie. There are a lot of questions regarding actually the iElectrics project. So there was in your slides, Noemi, actually also the Indian grid demonstrator or look into that. So did you see any specific challenges and issues for that one? And yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, what question? Sorry, I I think. Can you repeat, please?
The Indian perspective.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Sorry, I know see this question. I see other questions. Sorry.
Yeah, don't worry. Let's go now to a more generic question because we are approaching the end. So now a question for all the projects. Grid and data and the network simulations, which are actually required to provide this value of the grids. Do you see any limitations in the use of the data or in the network simulations which were used for different purposes across these projects in order to actually enable a power system able to answer the challenges of this decade? So now this is a question for all of you, and I will start with Anastasis.
Thank you, Norella. We have faced such challenges also in FACROS project about the availability of real data from the TSOs, and since we have also in this period especially security concerns to share most of the data, but we managed, let's say, to tackle this challenge. We had let's say, data sets perhaps from previous years in order to simulate and use in the system. So at least in our case, we managed to have this data that were needed for this purpose.
Thank you, Anastasis. If I can have very fast your view, Natalie, as well as Matteo and Noemi on the data.
Yeah, so one thing we had to address in our demo was to merge basically network data from different TSOs really close to real time. So collect those network snapshots and merge them. And we felt like maybe this could be a process which could be coordinated at one point to have a network, a consolidated network file between different TSOs close to real time, which is not the case today. Thank you.
From our perspective, of course, working on data, especially future possible data loads, etc., is always a big challenge, as well as getting standardized data from the grid. So I would say, I mean, we've found our ways to work with that in an effective manner, but standardization and common protocols would definitely help to unleash the power of digitalization, which will be by no means the one of the keys for the future development of decarbonized systems.
Thank you, Matteo. Noemi, to you.
Okay, I totally agree with Day. It's important to have a good network monitoring. It's true that the many distributors already have a lot of network data, but it's important to have a good consolidated data. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we are coming to the close of this session. So one question and one short answer. All of you provided different inputs into the project. We will have the session on 29 dedicated to more policy aspects. So if would be a message from your perspective, what you would like to see in the session on policy on 29 of June addressed from the perspective of the value of the grids, which is the main issue you would like there to be addressed? Anastasis, if I can start with you.
Thank you, Norella. I think the harmonization of the network codes and to see how this, let's say, tackles the challenges between cross-border trading, I think this would be a very interesting topic.
Thank you. So harmonization of the network codes. Natalie, from your side?
From what we saw in Osmos, so we have good ideas of new process and so on, but it takes a lot of time to implement them in the real business environment of TSOs, which is very secure and complex. And thus, my point would be how to really accelerate our transformation so that we are on time with the ongoing changes of the power system, how to foster the innovation and really give the support on that.
Thank you, Natalie. So acceleration was the right word to choose for this InnoGrid 11 edition. Matteo, from your perspective?
Well, I can't help but restating the requirement for an integrated multi-energy approach. I mean, there is not one silver bullet, but the combination of many elements will provide the answer.
Thank you. And Noemi, from your side?
From my side, I think in the electric project is a good approximation to network codes.
Thank you. So network code, harmonization, and integration of different energy sectors, and also acceleration. So this is, I think, the final outcome of this session of the value for the grid. Andre, I will go back to you and give you the floor for the closing of this session.
Yes, I don't want to take time from the other sessions, so I just say briefly thank you to all the participants. I wanted also to point out that you can also, and now I'm talking to the project presenters, you can also answer the questions directly on Slido if you find some questions that you didn't address live in the session. You can still put a written reply there. And now I will pass the word to the next session. Goodbye.
Hello, thank you very much, Andre and Norella, for a very interesting session, and thank you for keeping the time. My name is Claire Camus. I'm Communication Manager at ENSOE, and I have the pleasure to co-moderate this session with Catarina Augusto from EDSO. So today we will talk about how to make consumers agents of change for the energy transition, and we will have a very good lineup of very innovative projects in this field. So in the interest of time, because we're already a bit late, I will pass on the floor to Catarina. Just be reminding to use Slido for your questions. We'll take them during the Q&A. And Catarina, the floor is yours to introduce the first project.
Thank you, Claire. So I'm Catarina Augusto from EDSO, as Claire presented me. And I'm responsible for the technology committee and the senior technical and project advisor. And just a quick presentation before we start with our first project from the 4 amazing projects that we have here today on this customer session. And we start from with the project ASEPT with Nicholas Stapoulos. So Nicholas, I invite you to join us and to turn on your camera.
Hello. Thank you very much, Catarina. Hello from Athens. My name is Nikolaos Stathopoulos. I'm representing Hypertech and the ACCEPT project. ACCEPT meaning here active communities and energy prosumers for the energy transition. Next slide, please. I'm not seeing the slide. The next one. Okay. Okay, then I'll go on. Apparently, you can see the slide. So the project started in January 2021 and has a duration of 3.5 years. We're approaching the midpoint of our project then. We just had our 3rd General Assembly last week. We have joined forces. In total, we have 16 partners and 4 demonstration sites, pilot sites in Greece, in the Netherlands, in Spain, and in Switzerland. Okay. The project addresses the following major challenges: grid integration of variable renewable energy sources, untapped flexibility potential of energy communities and prosumers, and citizens' involvement in the energy transition towards more democratized energy markets. In this context, we're now developing through the project a digital tool that energy consumer communities and prosumers will be able to use in order to keep a closer eye on their energy behavior, participate in demand response events, and gain access to new revenue streams. The tool that we are developing comprises a network of sensors, energy meters, and device controllers for monitoring and managing available devices and assets at both household level and community level. These devices include HVAC systems, domestic hot water systems, but also electrical vehicle charging, and also electricity generation using PVs. In parallel, sorry, I'm still on the previous slide. Thank you. In parallel, we're developing a unified modeling framework that will be used to capture the dynamics of human behavior and of the performance of the building. Among others, these models that we're developing will be used to optimize the energy consumption of individual prosumers and also provide forecasts of their energy needs. Therefore, they allow the deployment of flexibility services and the promotion of self-consumption. We're also developing a citizen application with the aim of providing desirable functionalities to citizens and prosumers. Last but not least here in this slide, I would like to mention that the ACCEPT framework is developed with the active participation of citizens and will be demonstrated and validated in 4 pilot sites under real-life conditions, as mentioned before, in 4 countries at European level. Next slide, please. The ACCEPT solution puts consumers at the center by providing innovative technologies and services that, as just mentioned, are developed in close collaboration with them. Our digital toolset will ensure significant energy and costs savings, automation and increased convenience, and also through the citizen app that we're developing will allow enhanced monitoring of indoor conditions for the occupants of the building and also monitoring of their energy consumption. The ACCEPT solution promotes self-consumption while introducing consumers to energy and flexibility markets through communities, and also providing means for empowering consumers' participation in energy markets and properly protecting them against market threats and risks. More generally speaking, the aforementioned services lead to increased energy awareness and promote the engagement and active role of prosumers and energy consumer communities to the energy transition. Next slide, please.
Nicholas, sorry, just to say to wrap up because you are finishing the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the last slide. So the last slide concerns the challenges to scale up. We have noted here some of them. We consider to be the major ones. First of all, it's the fragmentation of EU policies. So we have different aspects such as energy communities, demand response, distributed generation, that are treated in different pieces of legislation, and even more, the transposition to national legislation is a second issue, as this is not happening at the same speed and with let's say at the same conditions. Another issue is the market maturity. So even, for example, if flexibility market is, for example, if demand response is properly addressed through legislation, the market is not ready 100% level yet. Also, we have interoperability and communication as a challenge. as we are exchanging information and we have to control devices having a different systems, different communication systems. And one last issue is the participation of citizens, as citizens don't always have correct information or the whole information. So this might lead to mistrust or doubt. And there are also low or lack of incentives for them to participate. This concludes my presentation. So the last slide is the thank you slide. And also you can, of course, follow us on our social media, through our social media channels and our website if you want to follow the project and see updates for the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. I'm sure that will be very interesting questions in the Q&A session for ASEPT. Thank you. And I pass the word to Claire to the next project.
Thank you very much. So the next project is coming from France, and we'll be talking about plug-and-play solutions for consumers to manage their energy bills and their carbon footprint, which is a very topical subject in our current energy context. So Fabien, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, everyone. I'm Fabien Berger, the co-founder of Fractal Energy. And what we do at Fractal Energy is that we want to address a European challenge, which is to bring more flexibility on the demand side, but dedicated to the residential level. Okay. As of today, there is not a lot of solutions provided to the households to bring more flexibility in their consumption. I'm sorry, I see that the slides are, the police is not, the fonts are not clear, but on this slide, what we want to say is that if we want to shift away from an historical model using 40% of fossil fuel and very carbon intensive production to always adapt to the demand side with the renewable energy model, we are going to need more flexibility. And at Fractal, next slide, please, what we want to do is to provide plug-and-play solution, enabling the households to basically generate flexibility in their consumption. If we look at the very basic use case of self-consumption, as of today, current solutions are existing, but they are complex and expensive, and they usually require a professional installer to install the infrastructure at home. And at Fractal, we developed what we call the Flexbox, which is the first plug-and-play home energy appliance that will enable households to first monitor their consumption and the share of renewable energy they consume from their own installation or even from the grid. Second, they will able to manage the consumption of external devices to shift them at a specific time where the renewable energy production is maximum. And third, what makes this box very unique is that they are going to be able to store energy in a lithium battery coupled with a bidirectional inverter, which is integrated into the box. And for the first time, you can have a storage system that is simply plugged into a wall socket and configure with your smartphone, which makes the user experience very simple. This is the first time that from the unboxing to the use of the box, you're going to spend less than 15 minutes configuring the device and being able to get flexibility to your house. I do a specific mention that we use the real-time data from the smart meter that are deployed everywhere in Europe to gain in precision and also in reactivity of the data. And the next challenge for us is to go beyond, so next slide please, is to go beyond self-consumption and to make this Flexbox used as the terminal for the grid to provide new services. So basically we want to bridge the households with the network and generate new business model and services with the stakeholders like TSO, DSO, aggregators, and electricity suppliers. First, we believe that households will be willing to monetize the flexibility of their own flexibility, meaning that to give up some control on their consumption to the grid in order to maximize their savings in terms of electricity bill, but also to decrease their carbon footprint. And on the production side, there will be stakeholders willing to use this control they get from the households and to generate megawatt and megawatt hour of flexibility to maximize their margin, of course, shave some consumption peaks, but also to stimulate the consumption on the demand side in case of a surplus of renewable energy. So this is what we do, and of course, I'm available for any question.
Thank you very much, Fabien. That was within the time, so thank you very much. Very interesting, and we'll take questions later on. So maybe, Katarina, you want to introduce the next project?
Yes, thank you, Claire. So the next project and the third of this session will be DT4 Flex, digital twins for flexibility service in low voltage grids. And for this, I invite Ruben Pardo and Pablo Martin to join on the stage. Ruben is the project coordinator from the project, and we have from the project technical coordination, Pablo. So thank you and welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Katarina, and thanks to all the people who are attending. Well, my name is Ruben Carmona. I'm the data analytics lead at Ingelectus, which is a power system deep tech from Spain. And with me is Pablo Blázquez. He's a smart grids engineer at Cuerva, which is a medium-scale distribution company from the south of Spain. And both of us will be doing this presentation, okay? Right, today we are going to briefly introduce the DT4 Flex project, in which we addresses the development of an electrical digital twin for flexibility services in low voltage grids. And the idea for this tool in which we are working is to make it possible that the DSO could be able to rely on the participation of flexibility services providers or customers in the operation of the grids. And to get straight to the point, in the next slide, you have depicted in the image of the left. Well, I see that the image are not shown very well, but well, in the image of the left, we have represented a very simple representation of the objective of the project. Which is creating a tool that, given an operational state of the network, using the topology of the low voltage grid and considering some flexibility services providers, it could be able to foresee possible real-time or future problems in the supply and to avoid them by activating flexibility services. To put it in a nutshell, we are very aware about the importance of the network in the integration of new customer or new agents. So there are 4 points on which we have focused the efforts. The first point is developing a low voltage grid problem detection module that uses unbalanced low voltage models with a fast and robust core based on a distribution system state estimation, and which is able to work with past, real-time, and future scenarios. The second point in which we focus is a methodology to activate flexibility services based on the grid. And this methodology is important to focus on supply quality problems voltage deviations and continuity problems, continuity supply problems. It uses also sensibility coefficients whose calculation takes the operation state and the topology into consideration, and it also follows a competitive assessment of the flexibility service to be activated. The third point was considering Cuerva infrastructure, modeling part of its low voltage network from its living lab and use it as a field test. And the fourth point was seeking new business opportunities based on this flexibility and putting the customer in the center. So now I will pass the floor to Pablo Blázquez, who will talk about the contributions and the scalability.
So hello, first thanks to you so much, Ruben. So hello, I'm Pablo from Cuerva, and I will continue from this point on with the presentation. Now that you have an overview of the project, I will talk about contributions on it from the point side of view of the technological partner and also from the DSO. So as you can see, the project has an impact on all three areas of interest: the value of the grid, for the customer, and for flexibility. I will focus on the value of the customer, but just only mention a few interesting points of the other two areas, like for the grid. From the technological partner, we detect accurately the problems and propose an optimal solution. And from the DSO that can increase the hosting capacity or have a real-time monitoring of the network. And also talking about the flexibility, we can proper manage the flexibility available in the grid, and also or study the integration of new assets to obtain the best network configuration. Now focusing customer, the 2 points of view are really close to each other. For example, it's very important to predict and solve network problems to enhance the quality and the continuity of the supply, and the integration of new agents. Also, we can create new business opportunity for the customers that is in the center of the energy transition. And this is quite related to the new smart energy contracts that benefit both actors, customers and DSO, or new agents like aggregators. Again, the supply enhancement and or all about the environment of the energy as a service by extracting value of the data. We have a fully digitalized grid, so we can extract data from customers and also from the planning of the grid and all about that things. And also help the user to better understanding of its energy consumption. So next slide, please.
Sorry, Paul, just to interrupt, but just to wrap up, we are arriving to the end. Thank you.
Okay, I will hurry up. Don't worry. Now moving on to the challenge we identified to scale up the solution. It's just an overview, but we can mention few of them, like the user engagement and modeling in order to have a fully functional digital twin of the grid, the data and service monetization, how we set the value of the data and its transactions, communications and near real-time data. So we need to reduce data acquisition time in order to have a really functional digital twin. The demand response, and I'm talking about the real management of the flexible assets installed in homes. We are facing as DSO a real problem with the integration of new DERs, and so this solution is quite important for us. And also the definition of and regulation of new roles in the energy environment, like the aggregators. And next slide, please. So finally, can see it now. Finally, just mention who found and support this project. So thanks to the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Tourism within the support program for innovative business clusters with the funding from the European Union through the Next Generation funds. So thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ruben and Pablo, for the presentation of DT4 Flex. I'm sure that will be very interesting questions on the QR session in the end. Now I will pass the word to Claire for the next project.
Thank you, Katarina. So I would like to welcome Rita Dornmer, who is consultant at BOM Consult, and will introduce Fever. We'll talk about flexibility, aggregation, and management, with a perfect segue to the last session of today, which will discuss value for flexibility. So Rita, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm very happy to be here. Like said, my name is Rita Dornmeier, and based in Munich, researcher at BOM Consult, which is one of the 17 partners in the project consortium of Fever. We started in February 2020. The project runs for 3.5 years, so 1 year last to go. And the objective of Fever is to design, develop, and demonstrate flexibility-related solutions and services, aiming to use energy resources more efficiently, ensure resilience and security of the grid, and all that at affordable costs. Yeah, so our solutions are threefold, like shown in the slide. So once we for one time we focus on the DSOs to support their grid management and operation with solutions like critical event prevention, enhanced grid control and optimization, and so on and so on. Another focus we have on market operators, both for large wholesale markets, but also regional markets. And there we develop market mechanisms for trading flexibility. And the third focus we set is on flexibility providers and aggregators. And here we are developing management systems, including peer-to-peer energy and flexibility trading within the energy communities, which I will talk in a second about. So like I said, these are the three focus points we set, and of course the combination thereof, and or the cooperation between these roles in the system. We have 3 trial sites and 1 lab trial. The trial sites are in Spain, Germany, and in Cyprus. And there's 1 lab trial in Greece. Today, I'll focus on the field trial in Germany, where we have a large focus on energy community. And this brings me to the next slide, where we have a closer look on the energy community. We want to set up there in a town called Wunsiedel and also a town called Haßfurt. They are both part of this trial, and we want to bring value for customers. That's the focus today, and also the focus in Fever, by implementing this peer-to-peer energy and flexibility trading solution in the trial sites, or in the trial in Germany. We want to have safe and reliable energy supply for all the members and also the regions around the energy community. We hope to increase the regional commitment and community feeling in this region. We want to increase the use of local and renewable resources. We want to support energy transition, or enable participants and private persons to support the energy transition. Which is, I think, we can't go without private persons. We need to include them. Also, we hope to have a cost reduction for them to have a money-wise value for customers. And also, we want to think about local value creation, which we think is very important when thinking about energy communities and including persons, that they are feeling like a community and have local values increased. The biggest challenges we are facing, or we see upcoming, which is on the next slide, are, like I think already said by Nikos in the beginning, on interoperability of already existing systems, new systems, and any combination thereof. And we need to enable the systems to talk to each other on a technical level. Also, regulatory barriers are there in some national states. For example, local energy communities are not yet defined. Also, business models are a thing. Local energy communities need some business models, and this is a difficulty to come up with the business models. And last but not least, acceptance, both from end customers, but also from established roles in the system. I think some have difficulties to accept new developments and new solutions. And that's all from my side. Many thanks, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Rita, and thank you for sticking to the time. I will maybe invite all the participants to turn on their camera, and maybe also invite Katarina to join. We will start the panel discussion. We have received quite a few questions on Slido for each of your projects. So maybe what I propose is for Katarina to present the questions that we have received for Accept, and then we will move on to the next project.
Thank you, Claire. So starting for Accept, I have a question for Nikos. So Accept, the project that is on active communities and energy prosumers for energy transition. And the question comes as, how have you managed the delivery on the burn of the prosumers to avoid their need to constantly interacting with the app?
Yes, that's a good question. That's something we're also discussing within the consortium, and also it's the feedback we're receiving from the demonstration sites. So what we are developing actually runs an automatic management of the devices of the prosumer. We have machine learning algorithms that are trained from the behavior of the occupant, and then our solution will automatically adjust their devices in order to respond to demand response signals or optimization requests. So we do not have push notifications sent to the customers every 5 minutes or 10 minutes. However, the customer always has the opportunity to adjust, and they have the full control over their appliances and can override, if they wish, the automatic system at any time. And this also provides new feedback to the algorithms, so then this is taken into account for next replies to signals from the operator.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you.
Maybe let's go ahead. If you have another question for Accept, let's continue maybe. Otherwise, maybe Fractal. So there were a few. And one of them was whether there were a lot of devices already in operation, and what actually you expect the potential for the penetration of your device is. So maybe Fabien, if you have already some figures.
Yes, my answer is that so far we are still a deep tech startup, which means that we are just getting out of the laboratory. Our development on the bidirectional inverter, which is the key of this technology to make it simple and accessible into households, is barely going out from the lab. And so we're going to have the first test running to next year in 2023. So as of today, there is no Flexbox as mentioned in the presentation, but today we are focusing also on the data coming from the smart meters, because we have developed a local radio emitter, which means get the real-time data from the smart meters, and we are actually valorizing monetizing this data with multiple actors like social housing, which are willing to get this data to improve their investments.
I don't know, Katharina, what you think, but if I can continue with one second question for Fabien, and then we can move to another project. Fabien, there were some questions on the fractal cloud. If you can explain what it is, and if there are, it is taking into account some grid issues like losses, for example.
Yes, so clearly the fractal cloud has two functions. The first is basically to get the information back to the customer. So we collect the data and we give it back to the user through a website. This is very simple and it's not that original. But the second function will be the aggregation of multiple boxes to virtually have the storage power of industrial asset, okay, from a megawatt and megawatt hour of capacity. And so on the cloud, we are going to have the algorithm and all the control level that you to get this aggregation virtually done, and to virtually have a big asset, industrial asset using all those micro storage capacity.
Thank you very much, Fabien. Maybe there are some questions for the other project. Katharina, for DT4Flex, maybe?
Exactly. So for DT4Flex, thank you for bringing this solution and with digital twins. I think it's a very interesting perspective. And I have two questions, so I would start with the first one. How many actors in electricity system would benefit from the implementation of this solution that you presented here today?
Hi. I will answer for that one. I think that we can all the actors of the electrical network can benefit from this project, not only the customer. As I saw in the presentation, we can cover all the points of the grid flexibility customer, but we as DSO, we can extract value from this project, but also like new agents like aggregators can extract value, or maybe new companies, agents that can extract value from the data we have from the grid, and we can provide them with that data in order to create, for example, applications to have for the customers. Also technological partners. I mean, it's a whole system.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Another question I have is, does the solution rely on existing full independence network models as digital twins, or does it estimate the grid model based on assumption? Have you run pilot tests with some real DSO data?
Yes, I can answer this question. Well, actually, at this moment, we follow an exact model of the network approach. So we have confidence on using the data from the DSO about the full impedance network, and we don't actually estimate the grid model, because we think that with the approach that we follow, which is foreseeing the congestions in phase in any cable, or problems in voltage deviation in any nodes, it is important to use a good model of the network. And about the tests, we are now validating the tool with the data from meters and data from advanced supervisors from Cuerva. And also we have spent some time in modeling one part of the network of the living lab.
Thank you, Ruben. And I think now it's time for the fever.
Yes, Rita, there are some questions about what are the barriers for the deployment of the different solutions. You mentioned some of them, but would you agree that the user acceptance is the greatest barrier from the experience you have in your project? And if that's the case, did you think of ways to overcome this barrier? What sort of proposition we should advocate to customers or energy communities to make the step?
Yeah, thanks. Especially in Fever, I wouldn't say that it's one of the greatest barriers, the acceptance of the end user, but in this case, I think so. From what we see in the trial site in Germany, at least, the acceptance challenges is rather at DSO level, where there are employees working very long in the company, knowing the grid very well, and when then the projects come and introduce new solutions, including digitization a lot and automatization, that's I think something people can't accept in an instant and need to be introduced to in a slow and in a process where you keep introducing the solutions and also show them what they can bring to the DSO in this case. But in general, I think for when we talk about scaling up, I think also acceptance on an end user level is also there. I can see that many people just don't think about where electrical energy comes from. It's like you plug in your device and that's it. And wherever it comes from, they don't mind. And to create this awareness, I think that it's not just there by snapping your finger, but rather, it needs to be collected by whatever tool or technology. I think that's something we need to show them and also show solutions that enable us to do that.
Thank you very much, Rita. I will check if there are still more questions on the Slido. I think we have covered most of them. There was just one remaining one for fractal energy again. Maybe we can take that last one before we wrap up. It was more about the user connectivity. So whether you experienced any interconnectivity issues with smart meters.
So there is two types of connectivity. First, with the smart meters, and yes, we are in the development of our local radio emitter. We have some challenge in terms of duty cycle and power, using power from the smart meter itself. But I wanted also to add, and it was related to your previous question, that on the cloud we will use API to absorb maximum of information coming from external partners, including DSOs, including the weather and all the information that is helping us to pilot the box and aggregate them in the best way, bringing more value to the territories in accordance to the local renewable energy production, for instance. So the Fractal cloud is definitely like a receiver of many multiple external data.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if you agree, Katarina, but maybe we can finish by asking each project what would be the key message or key takeaway they would like to pass on to the policymakers, academics that will be joining us on the 29th of June, and that will also discuss the value for customers. So maybe if that's okay with you, Rita, you want to also, you've already mentioned the user acceptance, but maybe there is other things that can be done to help you in your project to scale up, or is it on the regulatory side or other aspects? So maybe if you have one last comment.
I mean, regulatory barriers are there, but rather on national levels, but on EU levels. So that's something which I wouldn't send to the 29th, but I think a shout out is to let's use digitization to to help make things easy for customers to use them and hide the complexity of the system.
Thank you very much. Maybe if we move on to Nikolaus.
Yes. So I think one aspect is how the EU policies are transposed to each country. So we've seen, for example, now we have our third GA. We saw that in different countries we have different level of implementation, and that's something that it's not easy to cover in the project. And the other aspect might be how citizens perceive the changes that are happening in the energy system. And of course, we've seen some frustration recently in many countries. That was also another thing that we discussed in common, especially with the events of this year. And maybe so this points to that more explanations and in simple way maybe to customers and so that there is more participation, less frustration, more participation.
Okay, maybe for Ruben and or Pablo, I don't know, but very short.
Yes, well, from my perspective, I think that it's important to have a specific guideline for local flexibility markets, especially, for example, here in Spain, in which it is not well defined. So for us, it's necessary to know it because all the solutions that we are developing and all the requirements from the DSO perspective needs to know where is the place in which we are working. And now we don't know too much about this. So for us, this is important.
From my side, I will subscribe the words from my.
Thank you. Maybe Fabien. Sorry, excuse me.
Okay.
We lost you.
Move forward on new flexibility markets and define how it's going to work and who is going to participate in them.
Thank you very much. Maybe Fabien.
I will totally agree with my colleagues, and I would just add that as a startup, we are looking for partners for experimentation, local experimentation. So we have a technology, and we need like a local experimentation to prove the value and also promote the technology for the user. That, like it has been mentioned, as of today, users are there is a problem of acceptability, even just information that the technology is available to them.
Thank you. Maybe Katarina, you want to wrap up and thank all our participants.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. Thank you also for moderating with me this session, and thank you all the participants. I think you give very interesting perspectives on gaining the value of customers on this energy transition and what is needed to be done and the next steps that we should focus. And I hope this discussion will bring today also on the 29 more discussions on this session on the customers, and that you also join us there and come from the technical part to make the bridge with the policy. So thank you all for being here today, and that's it. And I will go for the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we pass now for the next. Thank you. We pass now for the next session on the value of flexibility. And now for moderating, I thank you, Claire, to join me on the customer. And I ask to invite now Paulius for the session on the value of flexibility, the third session and the last of today from the project session. And please, Paulius, I invite you also to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Katerina, and thank you everyone for keeping connected till the last session. I am very happy to see that my number is not dropping. So my name is Paulius Butkus. I am coming from NSOE Innovation section. And today, together with Katerina, we will host the last flexibility session. Flexibility is in general the bridge which will connect all the values of a grid, of a customer, and all the system transition. So in the 5 project presentations today, we will hear how we are developing services, requirements, products, regulations, markets, coordination platforms, which will all together will enable services for provision for TSO, DSO in general, making Repower Europe possible. So I'm happy to see, and Katarina, back to you to start the discussion.
Thank you, Paulus. So just a quick reminder, please continue using Slide for putting questions for the projects that we'll have here. And don't be also just, we support you that you vote on the questions that were already put on the slide. This way we can also understand topics that are more interested for you to answer. So now I invite you to the stage, Chris Castles, for the first project that is Coordinate. This project will end soon. And I think it's very interesting solutions and conclusion from the project. And today, Chris will come with some points of the project. So welcome, Chris, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Katarina. So yes, today I will present you some information on the Coordinate project, and this project will actually end very soon. So we are in the last final weeks of the project, and I'm actually leading the work on the work package that will collect the lessons learned from our demonstrators and the recommendations on the market design platform. So next slide. So some information on the Coordinate project. So I said it ends end of this month, and the total budget is 19 million euros. And we have 23 partners and 10 linked third parties. And we have demonstration areas in 3 countries, in Spain, in Sweden, and in Greece. And our project will just before summer end, and we are now collecting all the lessons learned. And the main aim of our project was to demonstrate how DSOs and TSOs shall act in a coordinated manner to procure their services that they need. And we have 3 sub-objectives. The first sub-objective is to demonstrate the activation and provision of services through different alternative TSO-DSO coordinated market schemes. Then our second sub-objective was to define and test standardized products that provide services to the system operators. And then finally, we want to develop a collaboration platform which paves the way to an interoperable pan-European market, and that will allow the development, the participation of all types of market participants. So next slide. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, what is flexibility in Coordinate? Flexibility is actually really in the core of Coordinate, because we focus on market-based procurement of flexibility by DSOs and TSOs. And throughout the project, we have tested different alternative TSO-DSO coordination schemes and market designs. And we have covered several services, balancing congestion management, voltage control, and controlled islanding. And all types of flexibility providers have been considered. And we have a main focus on distributed energy resources, because we wanted to unlock new types of flexibility. And these can, of course, very often be found on the distribution grid. So as said, we have 3 large-scale demonstrators. And in each of these demonstration activities, we have tested different products in different time frames and relying on different types of flexibility resources and in different market models. So next slide. And so we also looked at some challenges to scale up. So we started with the demo areas and then looked at the challenges we encountered. So these are some of the challenges that we saw. So one obvious is that you need a regulatory framework which truly supports market-based procurement of flexibility. And we made an analysis of the national regulatory frameworks in the demo countries, but also some other countries. And we noticed that there are still some barriers, although some important steps have already been taken in that direction. And then in addition to scale up the markets that we looked at, we need some further engagement activities and some further awareness raising to involve and educate new types of participants. And then another important learning from actually all our demos is that these new flexibility markets, which have been added to the existing one, should be well integrated within the existing energy and balancing markets so that they don't interfere with their operation. Then we also saw some other things. So I said in the objective, we started with the objective to come to standardized products, standardized solutions. And although we started with this ambition, it was clear that DSOs and TSOs have very different needs and requirements within a country, but also across different countries. And this requires very often different solutions. There is different regulations, there is different level of maturity, and this also give rise to different solutions proposed in our project. Then in addition, also the context is different. So the grid topology in the different countries, the characteristics of FSPs that are able to participate in the markets, and all our analysis also showed that these are key factors which actually influence the effectiveness of the proposed markets. Then we see that there will be different solutions that coexist next to each other, but one important prerequisite that we see is that we should at least have interoperable markets so that they can be scaled up despite the customization needs that I just explained. And then if you click one more time, then you will see that one main learning is that there is no one-size-fits-all solution, and that we should acknowledge that, but that we still want to strive for the level of standardization that is possible also for the new flexibility markets that we studied. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you for keeping in time. I'm sure that will be a lot of questions, and taking into account this is a project that they're arriving to the end, so a lot to very interesting conclusions and kind of chance the next steps that are needed to be taken, learned from here. Now I pass the word to Paulius for the next project.
Thank you, Katerina. And for next project, we will hear more about a German perspective, about DARE project, which will address the decentralization of and volatility of flexibility and usage for redispatching in energy system. So I invite Dominique Gofu to go ahead and tell us more about the project.
Yeah, thank you, Paulius. Hello, also from my side. I would like to give you a short overview over our DARE project. DARE stands for Data Exchange and Redispatching. And yes, that's our network security initiative from Transnet BW and our cooperation partner. So we can go on the next slide, please. Yeah, here's the short project overview. You can see we are with DARE in a joint development IT project, and it's an IT project between the TSO Transnet BW and our cooperation partner, the distribution system operator Netze BW. It's a cooperation project between DSO and DSO in Baden-Württemberg. Yeah, and both companies are based in Stuttgart. Yeah, short overview about our project partner. We have currently more than 40 network operators, which are already participating in DARE, and yeah, it's including all first level DSOs in our control area, but there are also many system operators in whole Germany, which are part of DARE. Yeah, we have in our IT project, it's a development project with approximate 125 participants between the both companies. So you see, yeah, it's a very great project. yeah, the goal of our platform is to give a great implementation of large parts of the new redispatch requirements for network operators in Germany. And since last year, there's the new regime of redispatch in Germany. And in the past, only great power plants which are over the 10 megawatt sector are participating in the redispatching, but now also smaller flexibilities and smaller renewable energy plants are participating in the redispatch with a level over 100 kilowatts. Sorry. Yeah, and the project timeline from our project, we started with our concept first in June 2018, and now we are in the final IT development and implementation phase. So please, the next slide. Yeah, you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. No, one. Yeah, now I see the last. Yeah, right. Perfect. We come to the value of flexibility. You see, DARE is, we call it the brain of all voltage levels. We have 4 voltage levels here, and you see the extra high voltage level and then the lower voltage levels. And we want to start with DARE, includes a comprehensive optimization tool for the cost-efficient coordination of redispatch needs and yeah, redispatch assets across all grid levels. And we are with DARE. DARE is the interface between the plant operators on the right side and the system operators on the left side. So, and we developed yeah, optimization tool to use the cost-efficient coordination. So that were the we can go to the last slide, please. Or the pre-last. Yeah, exactly. Here you can see the challenge we want to scaling up. Yeah, and you see on the extra high voltage level, there are the conventional great power plants, and more of these great power plants go offline from the grid, and smaller flexibilities more and more go to the grid, and there are more and more smaller flexibilities and renewable energies like wind plants or PV shifts. Yeah, and the challenge we want to solve is that there are more and more congestions in the lower voltage levels. So, and here small scale flexibilities are available that we can be used to resolve the congestions in the smaller voltage levels. And yeah, the enormous increase in the number of participants and the high number of generation plants to be integrated lead to a significantly more complex overall systems. And these yeah, complex system needs to a better coordination between the system operators. Yeah, and we with DARE operated a cloud-based IT platform that enables the coordination of the network operators across all voltage levels. Yeah, and that's my pre-last slide, and we can go to the last now. Yeah, thanks you for your attention, and if there are any questions now, you can ask, or we can wait to the panel discussion later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominique, and indeed, please type your questions in the Slido and we will bring them forward during the further discussion. And with no further delay, I am inviting Katerina to introduce the next project.
Thank you, Paulus. So for the next project, we have Universal, the linking activity system management of flexibility markets. And for this, we have today Pedro Marques, the coordinator of the project, to bring us the insights from Universal. Welcome, Pedro, and the stage is yours. We're muted.
Yeah. I'm no longer muted. Okay, thank you, Catarina. I'm Pedro Marques from Redes, the Portuguese DSO, and let's go, Catarina. Go ahead. Next, please. Okay, so Universal Project, 19 partners from 8 countries, in very broad number of partners, including DSOs and especially market and platforms and aggregator, and then the research institutes, associations, to solutions providers and as well as consulting. We're ending next year, so we have still 1 year to go. Next, please. So what's Universal? We have a broad scope, complying to the call, but the focus moves around the UMI. The UMI is the something that will aim to interconnect market platforms, DSOs, aggregators, and prosumers within a simple way of interconnecting. Go ahead, Caterina. Next. Okay, the central objective is to interconnect all these stakeholders in a simple way, as simple as possible, agnostic and adaptable and modular, relying on REST APIs, and so allowing for each one of the stakeholders to have its own platform and just to have this, use this tool to interconnect between all of us without the need of managed platforms. Next, Caterina. So around the UMI, we'll have, as I said, have a broad scope. We have also been developing a lot of tools for the DSO to use flexibility. We have within the project 2 market platforms, Nodes and Insight, Centric as an aggregator. And so we have this objective to do this in a near real life way of doing things. Next. The UMI specification is almost, the final documentation is almost done. So next year you'll be able to check on our website and social networks, social media, what's this about specifically. Next. As I said, we have been studying solutions for DSO, market mechanisms, all of the usual ones, and also we have made technical economic assessment of the available flexibility solutions. All this moving around the UMI concept. Next, please. We'll present a lot of use cases, 10 in fact, in 3 demo areas, focusing on the usual congestion and voltage management control, and then with some specificities, namely in Germany with redispatch 2.0, just like Domini referred to before. In Portugal, we'll focus also on managing operations with flexibility and investment deferral. And in Poland, we'll focus also on DLR, so through the flexibility the other way around, through a bilateral contract. Next, Caterina. Okay, so after we've done this, next year we'll have still a lot of issues, a lot of challenges we've been addressing. And some of them will be how to combine the different market models altogether. It's very complex. And specifically within local flexibility markets, how to manage more than one platform. It's also very complex. We won't test that in the project, but future projects will have to do it. And how do we avoid gaming? Next issues, we have to have incentives for all. So regulation is key here. We have to have tariffs good enough to allow for customer participation. Then we'll have to coordinate with the TSO, of course. And last but not least, we'll have to integrate new processes that we're not addressing in the project, namely the first part, registration and pre-qualification, and then the settlement phase in the end, namely the part after the metering phase. So the payments that will have to be integrated with the business as usual practices that we have deployed in the DSO environment. And that's all for my part. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro, and thank you for being on time. With now more time, I will pass for Paulius, and we'll come with questions for Universal also in the end with all the projects. Thank you.
Thank you both. And for the next speaker, we have Nikos Bilindis, who will present us an interface project, who is a sister or a brother project to the coordinate. So, Nikos, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning. So my name is Nikos Bilindis, and I'm going to briefly present the interface project representing European dynamics. So next slide, please. Interface is a Horizon 2020 project. It started in January 2019, and we are currently running our final year. The project will conclude its activities by the end of 2022. And the grant that we received from the European Commission was in the order of 17 million euros. Among others, the most important objectives of the project are to design a common architecture that will allow the interconnection of all energy stakeholders and the markets, the different markets that exist in Europe in a transparent and non-discriminatory manner. Most importantly, to drive the collaboration in the procurement of grid services by TSOs and DSOs, and also to allow the coordination of the system operators with the rest of the actors related to the energy markets. And of course, to create strong incentives for connected customers, especially targeting the smaller consumers, aiming to bring them on board to the energy markets. And finally, to adopt and promote state-of-the-art digital technologies in an effort to aiming to assist the digitalization of the power systems. So interface, all in all, proposes novel market designs and standardized services and products for congestion management, for balancing markets and ancillary services markets. And all these are piloted and demonstrated in 7 large-scale demonstrations that are deployed in 8 different European countries. And all these come together through the main product of interface, which is the EXA platform, which is a common architecture that enables the connection and the data and information exchange in a seamless and secure way between all energy stakeholders, putting extra focus on the system operators and the flexibility service providers, and provides a common space for the coordination of the system operators, integrates with different markets in Europe, especially focusing on balancing and congestion management markets. And as we said, incorporating standardized services and market design. All this come together through a powerful data management middleware that lies in the core of the EXA. And it is responsible for the seamless and secure data exchange between different stakeholders. And one of, let's say, the main aims are to ensure interoperability and transparency by using well-known and established standards, such as the common information model. So if we move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So as I said, we have 7 large-scale demonstrators that cover congestion management and balancing issues, peer-to-peer trading, and market integration, and the pan-European vision. The EXA features different modules that facilitate many market-related operations that can help to provide value for flexibility, to unleash an important flexibility potential by allowing more coordinated communication and cooperation of the interconnected actors, and facilitating processes that are related to the market, that surround the markets in an automated way, processes that so far have been quite time-consuming or more bureaucratic. So EEXA can offers automated but also manual ways to perform the grid, the product, and the bid prequalification. It makes sure that the connection of new assets or the bids that are being offered to different markets will only help the operation of the grid and will not have any negative effects, such as violation of grid limits or cause of congestions, etc. And also, we allow the activation and settlement through the platform. All these are being performed through the main components, namely the flexibility register of EEXA and the TSO-DSO coordination platform, where the flexibility service providers on the one hand can register and bring all the resources to the market and perform efficient portfolio management, while through the TSO-DSO coordination platform, the system operators can have a very informed overview over the flexibility that's available on their grid. Also, this platform offers a common space for sharing different merit order lists from different interconnected markets through the single interface market, and to more efficiently run their systems. And also,
we need to close.
Yes, so 30 seconds and I'm closing. Also, we are lowering entry barriers for consumers by empowering the role of aggregators. And my final slide, I'll be really fast. Some challenges for scaling up. We need to focus on the harmonization of products and the definition of products and services to empower the consumers and to engage the consumers. Also, digitalization and interoperability are key challenges. We need to define common vocabularies, to adopt standards and define energy data spaces. And finally, transparency and regulation can play a really important role, and we need to focus on this as well. So thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Nikos. And we see that we are a little bit running out of the time, so we invite speakers of projects also to take a look to Slido and answer individual your project questions. And meantime, we invite Katerina to continue.
Thank you, Paulius. So the last project of this session, it's OneNet, that is the last project on the same call as Coordinate and Interface. And for presenting OneNet today, we have Professor Antonello Monti. Welcome, Professor, from the Aachen University, the coordinator of OneNet. The stage is yours. Thank you.
Good morning. Hope you can hear me okay. My name is Antonello Monti. I'm a coordinator of the OneNet project. Maybe we go directly to the next slide where we have the key points of the project. So OneNet is a quite large project. We have more than 70 partners from several countries in Europe, as you can see from the map in the bottom of my slide. And as the name says, we have a very clear ambition that is to create a fully replicable and scalable architecture to enable the whole European electrical system to operate as a single system in which a variety of markets allows the universal participation of stakeholders regardless of their physical location, which means that we have two key pillars in the project. One pillar is the analysis of the market models and the alignments within that, so definition of clear products. A second pillar is the definition of the architecture. You see a sketch of the concept of the IT concept of the project on the top part of my slides on the right. And what is important to say is that, my presentation correctly comes at the end of this session because we build our solutions thanks to previous very important project. I would say 3 of the 4 that were presented before me are definitely contributing to the OneNet. So coordinate interface for sure, also universal all the key partners of the project are also partners in OneNet. And at the end, to build this OneNet vision, we have a clear concept. We are not trying to build one more platform that should be the European platform, but we are trying to build a system of systems, so a concept of platform that will be integrated together. With that, maybe going to the next slide, discussing then the value proposition. I structure according to the 3 key elements of the session. So from the grid perspective, with this solution, we create unique opportunities of synergies among TSO and DSO. They defining concrete standard for the interfaces and the new service definition. But the implication is we expect that majority of the actors we have involved with us already have IT solutions. We are not there to change, but we are there to add the layers through our middleware that will make them interoperable and able to interact with each other. That's very critical for the customers as well, because we remove the barrier to participation. We want to make possible everybody to join everything. We have this concept, we call it multi-multi in all the demonstrations we are doing. And because we want to have possibly as much as possible in our use cases, multiple DSOs, multiple TSOs involved. At the same time, while we are doing that, we select specific IT solutions that guarantee data privacy and data access control directly embedded in the architecture. When it comes to flexibility, these are the flexibility mark at the heart of the OneNet. And the open solution, everything we are doing at the level of middleware will be released as open source. It really enable a digital single market for flexibility. And what is really critical also, and if you want, this could be called the third pillar of the project, with that vision behind, we are also developing a unique set of demonstration that are organized in clusters. And there are 4 clusters in 4 different parts of Europe. The point of the cluster is, as I was saying, in the point of value proposition for customers, is that we have multiple countries involved in every clusters, so that each country will have its own use cases, their own IT solutions, and then the OneNet layer middleware as a glue that really builds this. And we build a regional, let's say, in this 4-part, north, south, western, east of Europe, with some already significant set of participants, but then creating the conditions to be ready for the overall vision of OneNet for Europe. Next slide, maybe. And completing on the challenges, I would say the scale of the project is already quite unique, but some relevant countries are missing. And that's where, for example, the previous presentation is very interesting because, for example, just to make an example, maybe because I live and work in Germany, Germany is not involved as a demonstrator in the project, is involved with research institutions, so my university and also Fraunhofer, but not with demos. So we need to establish links to the other country. We need to survive the project. This is a challenge, I would say, for all the European projects. We all develop great things, and then the risk is that they end with the project. And that's why the open source approach, I think, is a key element, creating a community around the project. The same we heard in the previous session related to the FlexCom that Baum is organizing, but we need to do something on the open source here. For example, things like Linux Foundation can help. And that's why we need a community around the software as soon as possible. And then parallel, while the software gives intrinsically standard, that standard must come as a reality so that we have the real interoperability in place. With that, thank you for your attention, and I think my time is off.
Yes, thank you, Professor. So now I invite all the panelists to join us on stage, and thank you so much for bringing OneNet perspective to this session also. And I will give the word to Paulius to close this session and to make last remarks and the last question. Thank you.
I would like everyone, first of all, to thank for the presentations of the projects, and also thank very much for our audience to making Slido very lively. So this is also an opportunity for us to ask again for the presenters of the projects to take a look, especially for the questions referred to all your projects, and answer them on the Slido so that people don't keep hanging. And meanwhile, for the closing remark, we will go roundabout of the table with one question to all of you. And we would like to ask you, how do you address the regulation challenges in your project so that there will be upscaling of your solution when the project is closed? And which will be the question then that you will prioritize to be discussed in the panel discussion for value of flexibility on 29th of June for policy session of the InnoGrid? So I will go ahead and I will invite Chris to start the discussion.
Yes, if I can first answer to the first part of your question. So yeah, somehow we have different involvement of regulators in the project. So what the demo leaders and demo partners, they had active discussions with their national and regional regulators and their demonstrators to really focus on their country point of view and bring the main lessons to their regulators. And actually one of our final deliverables now, which we will present during our final event this week, is a roadmap towards new market design. And this roadmap actually gives all the policy recommendations on the market solutions that we worked on. And for us, this is the main input to the policy discussions. And aside from that, there is also stakeholder involvement, including regulators in all our activities. And our system operators in the project are also active in the scene to give inputs to the network codes. So this is mainly how it's on. I don't remember, sorry, the second part of your question was?
What you would like to have discussed in the policy session of InnoGrid?
So I think from the coordinate point of view, what would be interesting, so we have focus on DSOs and DSOs, with DSOs having market solutions which are already harmonized, for which already quite some standardization and regulation is in place, while DSOs are still innovating. So for us, it would be interesting to know to what level now freedom should be given to the DSOs to develop their solutions, or whether there should be, and which type of regulation should be accompanying this.
Thank you, and thank you. And then we go to Dominique for your reflections. Please make it brief.
Yeah, thank you for your question. From my side, a great point is to discuss what are the regularity objects in the future, which includes the smaller flexibilities under the 100 kilovolt level, and more e-mobility is becoming bigger, and there are many e-vehicles that can be also used, for example, to solve congestions in the smaller grid levels. And yeah, that's a great point to discuss because there's no regulatory for now. And I think one other point which is becoming more and more important is the cooperation between the DSOs in whole Europe with the TSOs in Europe. Yeah, it's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. For the next, Pedro, we will invite your reflections.
Yeah, a couple of reflections. One of them relates to the UMI concept and what we're trying to bring here. If we wait for the whole standardization of flexibility, we won't do this until 10 years or something. And so if we want to accelerate the flexibility uptake, we need to have simple solutions and intermediate solutions, and don't wait for the whole standardization package to be ready. If that we do that, we won't have this in time to comply to the Commission objectives. Besides that, we in the project have been facing some difficulties. A lot of projects probably the same, but we need to accelerate also from the regulation point of view, the advantages, the financial advantages for all the stakeholders to go forward, meaning the market platforms, aggregators, and last but not least, the customer. So regulation must accelerate also on this stage to allow for real advantages, real incentives for all stakeholder participation in flexibility. Otherwise, again, nothing will happen for a long time.
Thank you. Indeed, price signals are needed for the value to bring it forward. Nikos, your reflections.
Yes, so answering to the first part, so within the project, within interface, we have performed an extensive analysis of the relevant regulatory framework concerning the TSO-DSO coordination, the different coordination schemes, the regulation for flexibility, etc. And our project, which is now in the final year, will conclude with a couple of deliverables with proposals on towards regulators and policymakers, and also on a roadmap for flexibility. Moving on to the second part, I think it's important to see what steps can be taken from the regulatory domain to maybe, I don't like the word, but impose somehow some more common definitions of products and services across Europe, so that everybody speaks the same language and the trading between countries can be performed in a more structured and easier way. And also to regulation should allow and encourage the participation of small consumers who can provide a great untapped so far flexibility potential. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikos. So indeed, I hear already repeating enabling of customers and flexibility resources through the regulation framework. Anto, it will be your final reflection.
Yeah, well, from the point of view of interaction with regulation, what we are doing in OneNet, we took a very open approach, creating an original concept which is called Griffon, the Grid Forum. And we make everything we do open, and we invite also regulator to be involved in the discussion. And as a result of this activity, we will produce 2 documents as open documents, which are open for everybody to comment. One related to the market structure, one related to the IT architecture. So that's the way we are trying to build consensus on what we are doing while the project evolves, instead of waiting for the end of the project. And I think this should be a way to speed up the process to bring from, let's say, research innovation to real life and then standardization and regulation. Concerning the second part related to the hot topic, I will refer to my own slide. So I put at the last point this challenge on interoperability in software solutions. I think speeding up this process, that solutions developing software become public and then become standard, is to me one of the key elements to make this digitalization a reality, at least at continental level, not just locally.
Thank you, Anton. And Katerina, I will give you a final remark to close the session.
Thank you, Paulis. First of all, thank you all the projects that were on this session today. I think we had very good perspectives of projects that are now arriving to the end of their activities, and some that you still have work to do. So we learn also from this session with all the projects, and taking from the first note that Paulius made in the beginning, the value of flexibility really brings the bridge between the two first sessions discussed here today. And I believe that the points now that you make on regulation and standardization and what is needed to be done in order to put these innovation solutions that we are designing here on projects on the current grid, it's something that will come for sure in the discussion on regulation on the 29th of June. So I will be also happy that you join that discussion and bring your perspectives from today here with the panelists that we have on the 29th. And so one last thank you to all, and for the co-moderation from you, Paulius, also thank you. And now I will pass the word to George Panukus, from a policy officer from DG Energy European Commission, to make also this perspective regarding these innovative projects. So welcome, George, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, or actually good afternoon already. My name is George Paunescu. I work at the Directorate General for Energy at the European Commission, in the unit that manages our files on research, innovation, digitalization, and competitiveness. I wanted to start first by thanking the organizers, EDSO and NSOE, for inviting me today. It is really my pleasure to address these concluding remarks. But also allow me to congratulate the organizers and to all of you, all the projects and presenters, for this excellent session. It was full of substance, and I found it with lots of food for thought, so it really kept me glued to my screen. And I think this also lays the ground quite nicely for the upcoming policy session. And also, it really raised the bar and the expectations from that session, I think. So I'll start by looking at the title of this year's InnoGrid meeting, Mission Acceleration. I think this fits acceleration mode, fits very nicely with what's happening now and the mode set by Repower EU plan. We need to accelerate our energy transition because there is a double urgency to transform Europeans' energy system. We already had to tackle the climate crisis and reaching our decarbonization goals. And now we have a new and very strong driver to reduce drastically our energy external dependencies, in particular of Russian gas. A few comments from the meeting today. I heard really extremely interesting insights on the issues that were targeted for finding the solutions and raising discussions on technical implementations, but also very importantly on the challenges faced. And I think this last category provides very important inputs for both policy making and future research and innovation actions. The three clusters presented today were an excellent landscape for spurring the ideas. I saw the grid side, the customer side, sort of at the other end, but then having the common link on flexibility. So on the one hand, on how customers are engaging better with the grids, and from the other perspective, how the grids bring more value to the customers. So these flexibility services, both in short term and long term, will become a key element of the energy landscape for ensuring the integration of renewables. There were many takeaways for me, many conclusions. I just stop very briefly to some ideas I've picked up, the number of challenges that still remain. So we heard that the acceleration of the transformation is needed by strengthening the links between the research and innovation world and system operators, but also the policymakers. Harmonization is needed. It was talked about including the harmonization of the network codes with regard to cross-border trading. Also from the legal perspective, the national transpositions of the EU legislation need to be done carefully for not creating unnecessary barriers. Looking at technical aspects, good network observability, monitoring, and consolidating the available data, they are key for decarbonization. Good grid models are needed. Digital twins are excellent tools that need to be expanded and fully used. Customer participation and acceptance are vital. Interoperability is really key to all these discussions, and we heard that using open source solutions should be recommended whenever possible. TSO, DSO, deep cooperation is absolutely needed, and DSO domain in particular undergoes rapid developments and transformation and needs close attention, including from a regulatory perspective. Regulation needs to remain alert, flexible, and keep up with the rapid technological and market developments. Special focus on a coordination framework for flexibility is required. And going back to the projects, it's very important to ensure the sustainability of project results. The results need to be taken up, scaled up, and used on the markets, not simply finished once the respective projects come to an end. So I'll move to the projects. Just a few ideas. I've seen an impressive array of projects today. Almost all receive European funding, I think, and the vast majority are members of the Commission Bridge Initiative, which brings together projects on smart grids. We have started this initiative, the Bridge, within Horizon 2020 program back in 2016. So we are now celebrating its 6th year of existence. We are also successfully continuing this initiative in Horizon Europe, and we have to date 93 projects contributing. The number of currently running ones is 58, I think, but new ones will soon join the initiative. And to date, it's worthwhile to say that, to outline that it was invested over 1 billion euros in the bridge projects collectively, out of which over 860 million are EU contribution. And these projects brought together around 1,000 participating organizations from 40 countries. Well, close coordination of Bridge and other initiatives like ERANET, Smart Energy Systems, they complement the EU perspective with the inputs and views from the national and regional public funding programs. And this builds strong synergies all across Europe and strengthens synergies in this dynamic field, and also allow the exchange of best practices among projects and to synthesize really good policy advice based on various projects' experiences. And as I think we all witnessed today. Now, referring to research and innovation priorities that are used for defining the European funding programs, the Horizon Europe calls in particular. Of course, the European, the research and innovation in general takes time. But we also, in view of this acceleration, we should aim for getting fast and impactful results. And I have to stress that when I say results, I refer not only to research and innovation results, but to results applied and taken over in real life. So it's really going back to that sustainability of the results of the projects element. So the keyword of the day, acceleration, I think this relates into the research and innovation field in my view, in two ways. One would be focusing on the right research priorities, and second, to deliver solutions that can be rapidly rolled out and scaled up for becoming real-life solutions. And for that, in the area of smart grids, we have another very important partner. So on the one hand, on the receiver's end, we have the projects grouped under the Bridge community, and other cooperating projects. And on the other hand, the feeding the ideas in the research and innovation and indicating what should be the priorities. We have the European Technology and Innovation Platform, Smart Networks for Energy Transition, so ETIPSNet, as we have heard in the morning from Professor Hatsiriagiriou. ETIPSNet produces sound advice regarding these research priorities and their vision towards 2050, the 10-year roadmaps they produce, and the detailed 3 years implementation plans provide valuable input for Commission services in planning and preparing the Horizon Europe course. And I think it's the same for the member states when defining their national research and innovation programs. Now, I'll move to my final considerations for today. And let me recapitulate some of the key aspects, some which were clearly presented, some which were rather implicit in the presentations. I think there are 4 aspects that I wanted to mention. First, we have extremely strong policy driver for decarbonization and transformation of the energy system. Second, we have the right resources to do so. If I look at the financial resources, the Green Deal strategy objectives are being funded by around 1/3 of the EU's total budget, total financial resources of 1.8 trillion euros. And these are carried out under the 7-year budget, 2021-2027, and the Next Generation EU Recovery Plan. So really that's something impressive. And as we saw today, we have the right delivery mechanisms, starting from the prioritization of research and innovation, all the way down to project implementation and following that up with the policy advice. And I must say here that the Commission, we really listen to the input and advice we receive and do our best to act upon it. For instance, you might know that we have started the process for developing a network code on demand response. And I saw this as a really important aspect outlined today. And also, this autumn, we intend to publish an action plan on digitalization of energy with quite a lot of things to be addressed. But you'll see that it also includes consideration on data exchanges, which we saw that are so badly needed, and mechanisms for improving interoperability. And also the ETIPSNet, our partners, the multi-annual implementation plans on the other end of the spectrum, they continue to adapt and follow the policy developments and the policy cycles and take on board the new challenges when refining their future advice. And fourthly, regarding these overall aspects, I think it's clear we have excellent projects with lots of ideas on how to proceed with the transformation of the energy sector and the evolution of the grids and strengthening the prosumer roles and participation, etc. So let me conclude by saying that in view of all these, I feel quite optimistic with regard to the future and the ongoing transformation of the energy system. But for that to happen, I look forward to continue to see the same level of active participation I've seen today, the same level of partnership I witnessed for the full decarbonization and an effective transformation of the energy systems. We clearly need to mobilize all available resources and use the best solutions and technological innovations. So I end by saying that I look forward for the policy session to take forward these ideas started today and build on the excellent start of today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George, for a very comprehensive and excellent conclusion to this session. I'm joined by Roberto to thank all the participants for your questions. We hope that the projects are going to address those questions. We also thank the speakers and the colleagues, moderators, as well as, I have to say, Roberto, our 2 associations, our people in the association, Paula, Andrei, Claire again, and also Paulus, Laurent. So thank you very much. And the final word to you for the next appointment.
Yes. Well, the next appointment is end of June for the policy session, and a particular thank to the Commission for having acknowledged the big effort that is behind all of this project that are really contributing to guarantee the transition, increasing the value of grids, and increasing the value of all the provisions that are set in place in order to guarantee it. Thank you very much again. Thank you very much, Norella, for the good cooperation this year as well, and looking forward to edition number 12. And it will be even richer and even more interesting. Thank you very much.